Optics on toy blasters is nothing new. Toy manufacturers have been putting optics on blasters, whether it's for a strictly aesthetic purpose or for any kind of claimed advantage in aiming or sighting in a target. However, whether you're just a backyard plinker or a casual once-in-a-while foam flinger, all the way to pro-level tournament contender, I'm pretty sure at some point we all have asked ourselves this question: do optics really matter in Nerf? Let's find out. I was sent this product by a company called NFStrike. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with them, with all their cool select fire kits that I reviewed on this channel. I took advantage and installed this kit on my Seagull and actually took it out to several events, both competitive and pretty casual, just to see what kind of a change, if any, this had on my gameplay and if it adds any fun factor to just basic home plinking. This is the Flip Dot Pro. It is primarily an airsoft product. It was sent to me specifically for the purpose of determining if this would be applicable or essential in a Nerf scenario. All right, guys, so this was sent in to me by NFStrike, the makers of a lot of professional airsoft gear. And now in the recent 5 or 7 years, they have slowly creeped their way into the pro Nerf segment of the hobby with various cool mods, like for example, the Rapid Strike Select Fire Kit. You also saw me review the Strife Select Fire Kit a couple of weeks ago. They offered to send me an optic and they sent me this model number and they asked me if it would be worth reviewing for something like our hobby. So let's see if we can benefit from this kind of equipment even at a pro level. What we're looking at here is the Flip Dot Pro. It's a reflex sight, meaning you just have to look through it, and wherever that dot sits, if you have your blaster properly sighted or zeroed in, your projectile should technically hit at or around that general area of that dot. Looks like they have a green and a red dot version. I got sent the red black version. Looks like they have dark earth, gray, red, that must be cool, tan, green, and OD green. Very cool options. What you get in the pack is basically your operating instructions, which there's not much to it. You pretty much have your mount, which attaches to Glock replicas for airsoft, and your standard rail mount, which is what we'll be using today. It is powered by one simple little disc style 2032 battery, which I did wear one out. It does come with a spare, so I'm running on the spare one now, and this is the old one. Comes with all the hardware you need, mounting bolts. The unit does feature elevation and windage adjustment. Does come with this protector, which you probably won't be using in a field because it's a very loose fit and it'll probably fall off on your first dash to a bunker or something. Various hardware for different kind of blasters, which we might not recognize because these are mainly airsoft blasters, such as the Razor and the Vortex Venom. And of course, all the hardware, including the original pistol mount that it was meant for. I did run this unit out in some wars. I'm gonna mount it on my Seagull, and then we're gonna compare outdoor, indoor lighting conditions, brightness, and all that. Ultimately, our final thoughts. Let's get into it, guys. Using the sight is very simple. It is initially in its collapse position like this, and then this little lever here, you push it down, and your sight deploys. You can see the ruby coated lens right there. Now the thing about this sight, once you flip it open, that doubles as an on switch. So what tends to happen is that you kind of forget about it. You put your blaster down to grab another blaster, and before you know it, at the end of the day, you pick up your blaster and you're like, oh, whoops. You collapse the sight, totally forget that that was the power button. And then when you get to your next game, you flip it on, no red dot because the battery died. So just be mindful of that. Just remember to collapse your sight when you're not using it or in between games, and you won't have that problem. So as far as elevation, the Dart naturally hits a little bit high, but it's dead on right out of factory as far as windage. And that's pretty good. However, the factory preset for a high dot is probably because a lot of airsoft replicas have an advanced hop-up system, where as the balls leave the barrel, they actually have a backspin to gain a little bit of altitude before ultimately and eventually dropping back to earth. Nerf darts don't do that. Nerf darts inherently fly flat for a little bit of distance depending on the performance and technical specifications of your blaster, but then they quickly start to be overcome by gravity. So if anything, the dot would be better to have lower than the average horizon or field of view. Once I did get it sighted in, I had no problems hitting my target. This is a very reliable blaster that hits pretty accurately. I am running the longest barrel that comes with it, and a custom-made 4-line P-car barrel. I do eventually try on planning a prototype 6-line version. More on this later because I do plan on doing something like this for the community. Ultimately, I was just tacking the shots one right after the other. Where I did run into an issue, and I don't know if this is just inherently part of this sight or if this sight is specifically made for dusk or darker, maybe even nighttime play. is that the dot was pretty much irrelevant during the day. I was at a Nerf war yesterday with all the professional Nerf teams, and I found that this just basically acted as a general field of view of where my dart is gonna go, rather than a pinpoint location of where I want the dart to go. Indoor, the dot would be visible and it would become more effective in that way. That's not exactly a bad thing, because for a while now, we have praised how open sights are generally really good for Nerf, especially with the earlier Nerf darts that weren't as accurate. They would just land in the general grouping area. We just wanted a window to tell us where that general area was. And that's what a lot of these open sights that didn't even have reticles achieved for us. And we appreciated that. That's the reason that I'm kind of not just gonna put this by the wayside. I'm still gonna consider that this is a worthy accessory for your Nerf blaster. They do make a green dot version, which might even be better for daytime play. I would have to test that unit out if they decide to send it to me. But for now, we can determine for a fact the 3 MOA dot in red is not visible at all past a certain amount of luminescence. I would say depending on where you live, you could probably be able to use this after about 7 p.m. when the sun is about 3/4 of the way set. I personally prefer the sights that have a little bit of an enclosed housing, because then the dot doesn't have to overcome outside brightness with its own brightness. The little hood or the little tube where it's encased in actually creates enough shade that the dot would be visible in any conditions, even if it was red. These sights have an advantage over the 2B kind of 1 or 2x magnify sights. The reason they're called reflex sights is because you don't have to put any effort into aiming like you do for a standard scope. You can literally just bring your blaster up to your eye level. Don't even have to close both eyes, not that that's necessary with any scope. With practice, you have your field of view right there instantaneously, and your center dot pointing where your projectile essentially should go. This has a full alloy construction, ruby coated, tempered lens. Very, very good construction. I like the way it folds back. If you have elevated sights or a riser on them, you could still use them, and also your red dot. I really got no complaints, but I can't say you should get this if you're a full daytime Nerfer, or you mainly have blasters that are more suitable for HVZ, that really you just use your first shot as a guide to trace the rest of your shots to a target. But if you're having some precision gameplay where you need a quick acquisition of a target, I would say something like this, maybe with a green dot that can serve in more lighting conditions, would work. I'm probably going to give this one a 3 out of 5, just because that dot is just not bright enough to overcome. Even my studio lights kind of drown it out here a little bit. But it's a great product. Thank you, NFStrike, for sending it to me and allowing us the opportunity to see if these things are good in the Nerf battlefield, just for the sake that it can work as a window general area where your shot's gonna go. I like that, because that's what we inherently learned to do with Nerf blasters from the get-go. Back in the 2010s, there wasn't nothing hitting accurate. This was kind of like one of the few ways that we at least had a general area to point at without having to follow the first dart. Got some blaster reviews in the mix, and the next video is gonna feature a big surprise for you guys. More on that later. If you like this video, you might have missed this one. I'll catch you on the next one. Stay blasting, foam fam.